Greetings, wits and wags. Today we are here to unravel the enigma, the beacon of modern comedy, Larry David. He's the man who made it okay to say what you're actually thinking, even if you probably shouldn't.
Oh, darling, Larry's the kind of man who'd look at a wine list at dinner and say, "Isn't this all just grape juice?" with an attitude.
Man, Larry's the dude who could find humor in a shoe and then make the shoe feel bad about itself. He's something else.
He's a social assassin, but the kind we desperately need, cutting through the bull with the precision of a neurosurgeon, if that neurosurgeon used a chainsaw.
Speaking of chainsaws, Larry uses his wit like one, but instead of cutting down trees, he's pruning the overgrown hedges of societal norms, folks.
And yet, for a man who thrives on the awkward, Larry's as comfortable in his skin as I am in a room without a fourth wall. He's turned the cringe into an art form, and we're all just living in his awkwardly paused universe.
It's true, from the streets of New York to the lavish lanes of Los Angeles, Larry's transformed the everyday into something extraordinary. And with that, let's dive right into the genius behind the man who made it acceptable to be unapologetically yourself, at least on television. Let's cut to the chase. Larry David, from stand-up to Seinfeld to Curb Your Enthusiasm. Richard, kick us off.
Man, Larry started in the clubs, bombing night after night. But that's the beauty of comedy, you see. It's all about falling flat and getting back up. Resilience, that's the word. You think you've hit rock bottom, and there's Larry, digging a little deeper.
Transitioning from stand-up to sitcoms, Larry wasn't just jumping ship. He was inventing a whole new boat. Seinfeld wasn't a show about nothing. It was a mirror reflecting all our eccentricities, our societal absurdities, distilled through this unmatched narrative structure.
Speaking of groundbreaking, Larry's work reminded me of my own struggle in a male-dominated industry. Getting I Love Lucy on the air, making it a hit, and then seeing Larry tackle sitcom norms head-on with Seinfeld? Revolutionary.
And let's not forget the sheer discomfort of watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's like Larry took the rule book of comedy, shredded it, and then confidently walked the tightrope without a net. You're horrified, but you can't look away.
Discomfort? Bah! The man's an amateur in making folks squirm in their seats. I was doing it when television was just a twinkle in Philo Farnsworth's eye. But I'll tip my cigar to Larry for carrying the torch. But it's that authenticity, you know? Larry's making you cringe because he's holding up a mirror to the most awkward parts of life. It's like he's saying, yeah, life's a bit of a mess, but aren't we all?
Exactly. And by challenging societal norms, he's not just trying to make you laugh. He wants you to think. You're laughing at the absurdity of social conventions and then realizing, maybe for the first time, just how arbitrary they all are.
Arbitrary? I'll tell you what's arbitrary. Paying full price for a half-hearted sandwich. But Larry, he turns the mundane into the monumental. That's comedy gold.
His influence doesn't stop with comedians mimicking his style. It's his bravery that inspires, his willingness to plow headfirst into the thicket of discomfort.
Bold, certainly, but the true genius lies in making the specific universal. You watch Seinfeld or Curb, and it's like peering into everyone's private idiocies. That's the brilliance of Larry David.
So to wrap this up, Larry's journey from stand-up to iconic shows wasn't about changing lanes. It was about creating a whole new road.
Well said. Larry didn't just navigate the comedy landscape, he terraformed it. Let's see where this journey takes us next. All right, let's jump straight into the deep end with Larry David's unique approach to cringe comedy. Groucho, kick this off for us. How do you see Larry's discomfort-inducing humor?
Cringe comedy. The only time squirming in your seat is part of the experience. Larry, he's a master at it, making you feel like you're watching an opera through a peephole. He's a bit like me, only I wore a grease paint mustache, and he wears his entire personality. His comedy, it's not just about the awkward silence, it's about the scream you're holding in during the silence.
Absolutely, Groucho. But it's not just the squirm, it's the magic behind the squirm. With Larry, it's about vulnerability, bearing all those thoughts you're not supposed to say out loud. It's like standing naked in front of a mirror, but the mirror is your in-laws.
You hit the nail right on the head, man. It's the realness, the rawness of those moments Larry creates. It's like he's saying what we're all thinking but are too scared to say. It's therapeutic in a way, watching someone else navigate the minefield of social decorum with a blindfold on.
Richard, Robin, you're both sniffing around it. But let's cut deeper. Larry's comedy, it's a study in societal norms. He's not just making us laugh. He's holding up a mirror to our absurdities, our cultural neuroses. He's saying, look at how ridiculous we can be. And damn if he's not right every time.
It's all fine and dandy to romanticize the discomfort, but let's not forget the skill behind it. It takes a genius to dance on the line of social acceptability like that. Larry's not just throwing darts in the dark. He's a marksman, hitting the bullseye of our discomfort.
And it's that bullseye that connects us, right? It's like, hey, I feel that way too. I thought I was the only one. It's comedy as a communal experience, a shared sigh of relief that we're all a little messed up.
That's the point, Robin. It's social commentary wrapped in laughter. You're not just laughing, you're learning, reassessing. It's the spoonful of sugar making the medicine go down.
And don't forget, man, Larry makes it look easy. But pulling laughter out of cringe, that's like tightrope walking in a hurricane. One misstep and you're not funny, you're just mean or pathetic. Larry, though, he's a regular funambulist.
So we're seeing Larry as a tightrope walking, mirror holding, discomfort dancing humorist who makes us all feel a little less alone in our awkwardness. There's definitely an art to turning cringe into comedy, and it sounds like Larry David might just be the Picasso of awkward. All right, let's dive straight into Larry David's huge impact on modern comedy and sitcoms. Carlin, kick us off with your take on Larry's disdain for traditional sitcom setups.
Well, Larry shredded the sitcom playbook, didn't he? He flat out refused to cozy up to the audience with easy laughs and predictable plots. It's like he said, who needs a hug when you can have a good cringe? That man turned the mundane into the monumental.
I've got to jump in here. While I admire Larry's work, let's not forget that breaking barriers isn't new. We were poking fun at societal norms and family roles back in the 50s. But yes, Larry took it to another level by making the characters' flaws the focal point. Very refreshing.
And let's not forget, he brought improvisation into the mainstream with Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's not just the topics he's tackling, but how he's doing it. It's like jazz, man. Unpredictable, a bit chaotic, but brilliantly cohesive when it all comes together.
Improvisation, schmimprovisation. The real jewel in Larry's crown is his ability to mirror society's absurdities. He's the modern-day court jester telling us truths no one else dares to under the guise of comedy. It's a rare skill, one that I, of course, pioneered. Hold on, Groucho. While you were indeed the master of your domain, Larry's approach to comedy goes beyond just poking fun at society. He makes us question why we follow certain social norms in the first place. He's not just reflecting society, he's challenging it to look at itself in the mirror.
And that's the crux of it. Larry doesn't just push the envelope, he rips it up. Traditional sitcoms wrap up problems in a neat little bow within 30 minutes. Larry's world? It revels in the messiness of life. There's no moral at the end of the story, just the chaos of existence. And that, folks, is the pure beauty of it.
I suppose there's a charm to chaos, George. Still, I'd argue that inviting audiences into more authentic, flawed human experiences, that was the game changer. It's why characters from Seinfeld and Curb linger in our cultural memory. They're real.
Exactly, Lucille. It's about connecting body and soul with the audience, showing them their neuroses and insecurities, but making them laugh about it. It's therapeutic, in a way.
Therapeutic? If I wanted therapy, I'd lay on Freud's couch, not watch Curb Your Enthusiasm. But Larry has indeed turned societal faux pas into an art form, laying bare the pretensions of modern life. It's commendable, even by my standards.
Clearly, Larry David's influence on comedy and sitcoms is as varied as it is profound. From challenging societal norms to making us laugh at our own insecurities, his work continues to resonate with audiences and comedians alike. Your insights today have only added to the richness of this discussion. Thank you, panel. Now, let's dive into the essence of neurotic humor in Larry David's characters. Richard, you've openly shared your own insecurities through your comedy. How do you see yourself in Larry's work?
Oh man, Larry's characters, they're like walking, talking bundles of nerves, anxieties, and insecurities, much like the rest of us. But he's got the genius to make it funny. In his world, it's okay to be neurotic, it's okay to be real. That's some powerful stuff, turning your inner turmoil into comedy gold. Frankly, I've always found that a man is only as young as the woman he feels. But watching Larry David, I've amended that to include and as neurotic as his audience allows him to be. His characters, they're all mirror reflections of the absurdities we're too scared to admit we see in ourselves.
Absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head, Groucho. It's the honesty in those neuroses that grabs people. Larry's kind of like a magician, showing you the reality of life's trickiest moments, but making you laugh instead of cry. There's a beauty in that kind of insanity, don't you think?
Darling, back in my day, neurosis was just a fancy word for being a woman in show business. But Larry, he makes it universal, doesn't he? Pulls back the curtain and says, "Look, we're all a mess. Let's laugh about it together." It's refreshing in a way. Shows you how far we've come, and yet how we're all still treading the same boards of the comedy stage.
Neurotic humor, eh? Well, it's the fine line between genius and insanity, walked by the likes of Larry David. He takes the everyday paranoia, the endless social faux pas, and says, "Hey, that's life." And the thing is, we eat it up because it's damn real. We're all just one awkward moment away from being a Larry David sketch.
And that's the crux, isn't it? It's about finding that connection within the chaos of our own neuroses. George Costanza, Larry himself in Curb, they've become icons for a reason.
Icons, sure, but let's not crown them just yet. Half the fun is knowing they'll trip over the scepter on their way to the throne. Yet, there's a lesson to be learnt here. Maybe being a bit neurotic isn't such a bad thing after all. Perhaps it's just the seasoning that makes the comedy stew all the more delicious. Seasoning, huh? I'd say neurosis is the whole kitchen.
And Larry is the chef, throwing in a pinch of anxiety, a dash of paranoia, and somehow serving up a 5-star meal that leaves us all wanting seconds.
Oh, it's a feast of follies, all right? And Larry David is the master chef, inviting us all to dine at the table of our own absurdity.
Just goes to show, in the end, we're all a little neurotic. And in that neurosis lies the heart of comedy. Larry's just brave enough to serve it on a platter.
Brave indeed. With that, our dive into the neurotic world of Larry David's characters draws to a close. They say neurosis is the healthiest form of psychosis. Larry David's humor might just prove that theory right. Let's dive into the genius of improvisation in Curb Your Enthusiasm. Robin, kick us off, will you?
Improv, the love child of desperation and creativity. On Curb, Larry's turned it into an art form. It's like jazz, really. Everyone gets a turn to solo, but you gotta listen to riff properly. It's pure, undiluted human reaction, which is why it's so deliciously awkward and genuine.
Improvisation isn't new, of course. In the early days of television, we didn't have the luxury of second takes. What Larry's done is take that necessity and turn it into a virtue. His work makes a virtue out of necessity, bringing a level of spontaneity that's akin to live theater.
Spontaneity, yes, but let's not forget the risks. It's like walking a tightrope without a net. Thrilling, yes, but one false step and you plummet to your doom. Not that Larry's ever truly fallen. He flirts with disaster like a seasoned Lothario, but always seems to land on his feet. That rawness, man, it connects. It's like stripping down to your soul in front of the audience. No scripts, just pure emotion and reaction. It's terrifying but liberating. Larry's shown that vulnerability, that truth can be funnier than fiction.
Vulnerability, maybe, but it's also a razor-sharp tool for dissecting the absurdities of societal norms. Larry, with his merry band of improvisers, doesn't just make us laugh, he makes us think. And thinking, especially in this day and age, is a revolutionary act.
True. You've got to appreciate the honesty in that chaos. It's like each episode is a little experiment in human behavior, a petri dish where society's norms are both the bacteria and the culture medium.
And yet it takes a certain genius to harness that chaos, doesn't it? Not everyone can walk into an unscripted scene and create comedy gold. That spontaneity demands a quick wit and a deep understanding of comedy.
Wit, yes, and courage. It's one thing to hide behind carefully crafted lines, quite another to dance on the edge of a word knife. But then, Larry's always had the audacity of a cat burglar, swiping our comfortable preconceptions right from under our noses.
He certainly turns social mores on their head. But what do you all think it is about Larry's method that makes these improvised interactions feel so authentic?
It's life, Bob. Life is unscripted. Larry's just holding up a mirror to all our faces, showing us the insanity of our own lives. He's not making this stuff up. He's just paying attention.
And by paying attention, he's inviting us to do the same, to question, to laugh at the absurdity of it all. In an age of rehearsed reality, Larry's improvisation is a breath of fresh, albeit slightly neurotic, air.
It seems then that Larry's improv is more than just comedy. It's a reflection, a critique, and perhaps most importantly, an invitation to engage with the unpredictability of life itself. All right, diving into the deep end, Larry David uses humor like a scalpel on society's untouchables. Let's hash this out, shall we? Carlin, kick us off.
You bet. Larry doesn't just push boundaries, he ignores them. Tackling taboo subjects with humor, he forces us to confront our own hypocrisy. It's like he's holding up a mirror to society, but instead of a reflection, it's a big, bold question mark.
And sometimes that mirror seems to reflect the image of a society that's more concerned with political correctness than honesty. Larry's audacity in addressing these topics is akin to a Marx Brothers approach to societal norms. Ignore them and make your own rules.
True, Groucho. And there's this liberating honesty in his work, you know? He's not afraid to go there to explore the sticky parts of the human psyche with a laugh. Vulnerability mixed with humor. Potent mix.
But isn't there a risk? Sometimes humor can offend, especially when it's meant to challenge social taboos. Larry's work does walk that fine line, stirring the pot, making us question our beliefs, and, dare I say, occasionally going overboard.
That's the point, Lucille. Comedy is at its best when it's a discomforting reflection of our own prejudices and absurdities. Larry doesn't just cross the line, he redraws it.
But here's the thing, it's all rooted in truth. That's why it hits so hard and why it's so necessary. Larry talks about the stuff that everyone thinks but nobody talks about. He's turning the light on in a dark room and making us look at what's there, even if we'd rather not.
Groucho, how do you see Larry's brand of humor influencing societal conversation?
Larry, like the great satirist before him, uses humor to strip away the veneer of societal norms, revealing the absurdity beneath. It's not just humor for the sake of laughter, but commentary, sparking dialogue about the issues we often sweep under the rug.
Exactly. He's not just making us laugh, he's making us think. And anytime you can get people to laugh and think simultaneously, you're onto something special. That, my friends, is the genius of Larry David.
It gets folks comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's where growth happens. If laughter is the best medicine, then Larry's handing out prescriptions like candy.
The essence of it all? Larry David uses comedy as a tool not just to entertain, but to challenge, to question. It's what all great comics aspire to do. Use laughter to reveal, to heal, and most importantly, to change.
And there we have it, folks, a testament to the power of comedy, courtesy of Mr. Larry David. Let's keep this spirited debate rolling as we move into the next segment. Now, let's dive into the meaty part of Larry's comedy, the real-life experiences shaping his work. Lucille, kick us off, will ya?
There's something about Larry's approach, using his own life as fodder for comedy. It's like how I used my marriage and family life. People see their truths in our stories.
Truth, Larry's like a mirror, reflecting the absurdity of our own lives back at us. My own stand-up, it's all about peeling back those layers, showing the raw underneath.
Yeah, but Larry, he's got this knack for making the mundane hilarious. I always said, scratch any cynic and you'll find a disappointed idealist. That's Larry, turning his disappointments into comedy gold.
Disappointed idealists are my favorite kind of people. Larry takes the cake, though. Using your own life as material, it's brave, but it's also cheap. No need to pay for writers when you're your own walking sitcom.
Oh, but there's something magnificent about exposing your flaws, turning your insecurities into laughs. It's healing, not just for the comedian, but for everyone watching. Larry's unafraid to be that vulnerable, and that's a superpower in this business.
Absolutely, Robin. It's about connection, showing your true self, warts and all. That's what resonates with people.
Connection? Sure, but let's not get too sappy. It's also about the precision of the punchline, the timing. Larry's life is just the setup. His genius is in how he delivers it.
But it ain't just about laughs. He's making commentary, using his life to highlight the ridiculousness of societal norms. That's the real meat of it. Societal norms? More like societal abnormalities. Larry's just pointing out what we're all too polite to say.
And isn't that the ultimate role of a comedian? To say what others are thinking, but are too afraid to voice. Larry's a master at that.
Seems like we're in agreement then. Larry's knack for weaving his real-life experiences into comedy not only entertains, but connects with us on a deeper level. It's that authenticity that makes his work so enduring. All right, let's dive into a favorite of Larry's world, his mastery of celebrity cameos and the fine art of self-deprecation. Groucho, you've seen your fair share of cameos back in your day.
Absolutely, Bob. You know, these celebrity cameos in Curb are like a socialite at a speakeasy, always popping up where you least expect them. But Larry, he takes it to another level, laughing at himself alongside Hollywood's finest. It's truly a spectacle, much like me without my mustache.
Groucho, dear, that's a fine point, but let's not forget how those cameos serve the story. Larry has a way of making every appearance meaningful, not just a parade of faces. It's smart comedy, blending the real with the surreal. In I Love Lucy, we had celebrities, but Larry, he uses them to hold up a mirror to Hollywood's and his own absurdities.
Absolutely, Lucille. And stepping onto the Curb set, you knew you were entering Larry's world. Participating in that self-deprecation Roomba was exhilarating. He doesn't just open the door for self-mockery, he shoves you through it with a smile. Being a guest star means you're part of the joke, not just in on it.
I've got to hand it to Larry. He turns celebrity cameos into an art form, poking fun at societal norms. But it's more than making fun. It's questioning the status quo, using humor as a scalpel. We're not just laughing at Larry or the celebrities, we're laughing at ourselves, our culture. It reflects the absurdity of our societal pedestal for fame.
That's the genius of Larry David. He doesn't just use comedy as a tool, he wields it like a weapon of revelation. Through these cameos and his unabashed self-deprecation, he peels back layers of Hollywood's glitter to reveal the awkward, stumbling humanity beneath. It's raw, it's real, and man, does it make you laugh. And yet, amidst the jests and jabs, there's a brilliance in how he does it without ever losing that Larry David charm. Even when he's the butt of the joke, there's a dignity in his self-deprecation, a lesson wrapped in a laugh. It's a rare gift, being able to ridicule oneself and still wear it like a badge of honor.
It's clear Larry's deft touch with cameos and self-deprecation not only enriches his comedic landscape, but also gives us all permission to laugh a little at ourselves. And in the end, isn't that the greatest joke of all? All right, folks, let's prepare to curb our enthusiasm as we move to the next segment. Straight into the deep end, folks. Larry David uses comedy as a scalpel to dissect sensitive topics. Thoughts on that?
Larry, he doesn't just wade into the murk. He dives headfirst. He's out there, using humor like a weapon against the absurdities of society. It's not about making these topics palatable. It's about shining a big, uncomfortable spotlight on them.
Well, that's one way to look at it, but there's a finesse, isn't there? It's about finding the funny in the painful. Larry's a master at that, balancing on the razor's edge without falling into mockery.
Finesse? If finesse is poking every sensitive subject till it yelps, then yes, he's Fred Astaire. Larry doesn't tiptoe around topics, he tap dances on them with cleats. It's brilliant, but let's not pretty it up too much.
There's a bravery in what Larry does, using comedy to expose and explore what makes us uncomfortable. It's one thing to make people laugh, another to make them think while they're laughing. He has them do both, sometimes against their will.
Yeah, and it's not just for laughs, it's for change. Comedy's always been about speaking truth to power, from back in the day to now. Larry's keeping that tradition alive, poking the bear and starting conversations that matter.
It's the spoonful of sugar approach, But Larry's not handing out sugar, he's serving up ghost pepper sauce. Makes you feel the burn, but you come back for more because it's strangely addictive.
Ghost pepper sauce with a side of existential dread. Larry's not content to skate on the surface. No, he dives into the deep end of the pool, not caring if there's water in it.
The point is, through all the discomfort and the squirming, there's a thread of relatability. People see their own absurdities reflected back at them. That's where the real impact comes from.
Exactly, Lucille. It's about holding up a mirror to society, and sometimes what we see in that reflection makes us squirm. But it's necessary, therapeutic even.
And let's not forget, he's making his own flaws the centerpiece. It's not just pointing fingers. He's in the arena too, showing us all how ridiculous we can be.
It's clear Larry has redefined comedy as a tool for social change. He finds the line, crosses it, then erases it. Laughter might be the best medicine, but Larry David asks, why stop there? Why not a whole treatment plan?
And what a plan it is. Discomfort, laughter, reflection, and maybe a little indigestion from all that ghost pepper sauce. Larry's comedy isn't just about the now. It's archival footage for future generations to see how absurd we all were.
With that, I think we've dissected the method to Larry's madcap genius. It's uncomfortable, provocative, but undeniably impactful. Carlin, Richard, Lucille, Robin, Groucho, thank you for diving into this panel with the grace of a sledgehammer to a societal norm. Next up, we'll tackle how this all builds a legacy, but for now, let's take a quick breath. Heaven knows, after talking about Larry David, we all need it. We're diving into the hefty matter of Larry David's legacy and what that means for the comedians who will march after him. Lucille, why don't you kick this off?
Well, Bob, it's about authenticity, isn't it? Larry never pretended to be anything but himself, warts and all. Future comedians ought to scribble that down. In a world plastered with filters and pretense, being real, being genuinely you, that's revolutionary.
Authenticity? If everyone were truly authentic, half of us would be out of business. The man-made neurosis and social faux pas an art form. Future comedians should learn to be as miserably comfortable in their own skin as Larry was. Not to mention, a little cleverness and a sharp tongue wouldn't hurt either.
And let's not forget vulnerability. Larry turned every personal flaw, every societal quirk, into comedy gold. There's strength in showing your underbelly. I mean, who hasn't felt like they were one social misstep away from complete and utter catastrophe? He teaches us to embrace the chaos, laugh at it, and maybe do a little jig.
See, vulnerability, that's where it's at. But it's more than that. It's about speaking your truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes the room. Larry, he didn't just tiptoe around the elephant in the room, he danced with it. Future comics, take note. Your voice is the most powerful tool you have. Use it to make them laugh, sure, but also make them think.
Observational comedy, social commentaries, he's done it all. But what future comedians really need to learn from Larry David is the art of provocation. It's not about shock value. It's about challenging norms, questioning the status quo. Comedy is a weapon of mass reflection. Aim carefully, and you can change the world, one uncomfortable chuckle at a time.
A legacy isn't just about what you leave behind. It's what others take forward. Larry David has set the bar high, not just in achievements, but in the courage to be oneself, warts and all. Thanks, folks, for delving deep into the legacy of one of comedy's legendary figures.
And remember, in the words of someone very wise, probably me, you're only as good as your last laugh. Keep at it. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be half as neurotic and twice as beloved.
All right, let's wrap this up in a way only comedians might, by tearing down every curtain, including the fourth one. Larry?
What a journey it's been. Thoughts?
Larry's comedy, it's like life, full of awkward moments, embarrassing situations, and misunderstandings. And if you don't laugh at it, you might just cry. He's shown us it's okay to do a bit of both.
Man, Larry made discomfort a comfortable place for comedy. He's like that itchy sweater your grandma made. It drives you crazy, but you can't help but love it because it's so darn real.
Larry's genius lies in exposing the absurdities of societal norms. He's a master at turning the mirror on ourselves, showing us how ridiculous we can be. It's a public service, performed in the disguise of comedy.
Dive into the deep end of discomfort with Larry, and you come up swimming in the sublime. He's taught us the power of the awkward pause, the misinterpreted comment, the foot-in-mouth dance we all do. He turns the cringe into a kind of ballet.
I tell you, in another life, Larry and I could have been a double act. Groucho and the bald guy. He's taken the essence of what we've all tried to do with comedy, twisting life's tail until it squeals, and then he made it squeal in Hebrew.
Quite the mosaic Larry's painted, using only shades of uncomfortable and hilarious. But what do you think he's left for those who follow in his footsteps? Or should I say, those brave enough to walk in his neurotic shoes?
Authenticity. Never pretend to be something you're not, especially in show business. Larry showed us you could be a curmudgeon and a mensch and succeed wildly. Be real and let the chips fall where they may.
Larry's legacy is telling it like it is, and sometimes telling it like it ain't, just to see what happens. He's taught us the power of saying what everyone's thinking, but too afraid to say.
The lesson? Question everything, especially authority. Larry never accepted this is just how things are done. He rewrote the script, and future comedians should too. Tear down the structures, but make them laugh while you do it.
To any comic walking in Larry's shadow, throw away the script, dance with uncertainty, and let your vulnerabilities show. That's where the laughs hide, in the imperfections and absurdities of being painfully human.
Future comedians should learn to wield their insecurities like a sword in the battle of wits. Larry didn't just open doors, he kicked them down. If you're walking through, make sure you've got something worth saying, and possibly a good attorney.
Looks like our reflections on Larry David have brought us as close as we comedians can get to a group hug, albeit a reluctant and slightly awkward one. Larry's carved out a niche so unique in comedy that future generations will undoubtedly study his work, not just for a laugh, but as a masterclass in how to observe, critique, and survive the human condition. And with that, we conclude our roundtable with a laugh, a thought, and a heartfelt middle finger to the ordinary. Good night, folks.